Hello, good morning friends. In the previous video classes, you are studied about the ecology. That's the ecological factor. That's the climatic, topographic, and the edaphic factors. So that continue with the another concept in the ecology unit. That's the ecosystem. So in this chapter, you will study the concept of ecosystem, types of ecosystem, biosphere, biomes, and different types of ecosystems, energy flow, food chain, ecological pyramids, ecological niche, and community structure. That you will study in this chapter. Just going to the first. Let's look at the biospheres. What is a biosphere? So usually earth is consist of the all type of organs, that's the living organisms. On the earth crust where exactly the living organisms are exist, that sphere of the earth surface is generally referred as a biosphere. So just look at the earth, so you will have so many questions. When was the earth is evolved, and how actually the organisms are evolved, and how they are diversified, and why they are diversified. For that reason, so you have to be studied the biosphere concept. So what is a biosphere? So usually the whatever the earth surface that consists of the living organisms. The zone of the biosphere is there are different layers. That's one is a hydrosphere, atmosphere, and the lithosphere. Hydrosphere is nothing but the water covering region of the earth crust. So usually earth surface consists of about 70% of the water, and the boiling point of the water is varies from 0 degree Celsius to the 100 degree Celsius. That is the highest boiling point of the water, that's 100 degree Celsius. So and the atmosphere, so usually the where actually in the earth surfaces there the gases and water vapors and dust particles will be present. That region is generally referred as atmosphere. And usually the last but that's a lithosphere, that's a soil portion, so it is represented by the mountain, plains, and shadow regions. So usually this picture is simply shows the how the biosphere consists of the component. That's one is the atmosphere, and another is hydrosphere and lithosphere. All these totally we call it as a biosphere. Okay, these are the zones of the earth surfaces. The next question, what is the reason or the why the life will exist on the earth surfaces? So usually the main reason is to the because of solar energy, the green plant produces the whatever the energy resources, that radiation energy that is converted into a chemical or the kinetic energy by the plant through a mechanism called as a photosynthetic phenomena. From that the plant will be produce their foods. So this mechanism will help for the all organisms to sustainable on the earth surfaces. So already I told that's a biosphere consists of various reasons. So the environment is nothing but the what we are looking on our surrounding, that's generally referred as a environment. So in the biosphere, so we will have a environment. In that environment we will have the one particular type of the functioning of the organs, that's a ecosystem. The ecosystem is nothing but the fundamental concept of the environment, and in this ecosystem generally there is a interactions of the living and non-living component will be occur. So this like the interactions between the living and the non-living component will be occurs, that the various factor will influence on the these interactions. That may be the different types, that's the temperature, rainfall, humidity, all we have studied in the edaphic factors. Next, going to the classification of the ecosystem. The ecosystem are generally divided into a two types. One is a natural ecosystem and another one is a artificial ecosystem. The artificial ecosystem is nothing but the man-made ecosystem. Here the man is the main key role to construct the ecosystem. For example, dam, aquarium. So these are all the artificial ecosystem. The what about natural ecosystem? This is nature itself maintaining the ecosystem. In that the interactions between the biotic and abiotic component will be occurs in a natural manner. The natural ecosystem are again divided into two types. That's one is terrestrial ecosystem and another one is a aquatic ecosystem. So what about the terrestrial ecosystem? The terrestrial ecosystem is nothing but here the soil is a main key factor. In this type of ecosystem there will be a soil as a basic sources of this type of ecosystem. Again this terrestrial ecosystem is divided into a forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem and the desert ecosystem. The forest is usually the where actually the trees are in a dense manner, so that's evergreen forest, semi-evergreen, deciduous forest. So these are the terrestrial ecosystem. That's a forest ecosystem. Another is a desert. So again desert two types, that's the hot desert and the cold desert. In the hot desert generally what happens, the temperature will be high, so here very less rainfall will occur. In the cold desert the completely rainfall is absent, there will be a possibility of the snow falling will be there. Okay, so that's the Siberian desert, thus are comes under the cold desert. And the hot desert is a Thar, Kalahari, so those are the hot desert. And a grassland, there are different types of the grasslands, plain grassland, shola grassland, so like that there will be a different types of grassland. And even the grassland varies with the different countries, that's prairie, pampas, steppes, so like that there are different types of the grassland will occur. All these three types, that's the forest, desert and the grassland are comes under the terrestrial ecosystem, because here the main component is a soil, so on the soil all the plants will be growing. Next one is a aquatic ecosystem. Aqua means the water. Here the ecosystem is main content is the water bodies. Again there are two types of the aquatic ecosystem. That's one is a freshwater aquatic ecosystem and another one is the marine water aquatic ecosystem. What about the freshwater ecosystem? Freshwater is nothing but the sweet water, that's ecosystem. So here again there are two types. One is a lentic and another one is a lotic. Lentic and lotic. Lotic means it's a running water ecosystem. Here the fresh water is flowing, running water. So for example river, stream, so those are the lotic ecosystem. The lentic ecosystem means here the water is a stagnant. There will be a water is stagnant in a one particular places. So this mediated type of ecosystem is called as a lentic. Pond, pool, so those are comes under the lentic ecosystem. That's so many reservoirs are there, those are comes under the lentic ecosystem. And the lotic is always the flowing. In each type of this ecosystem the plant and the animals adapted to the different situations. So you in case of the lotic water system, water current will be high, the plant is and animals, zooplanktons or phytoplankton adjust to that environmental conditions. Next is a marine water. Here the salt water as ecosystem, that's the oceans and the seas. So larger scale of the marine water, that's the oceans, and just little bit smaller than that's called as a sea. So both are have the salt water as one of the types. And already we studied the I explained that the different types of the ecosystem. In each type of the ecosystem there will be a different group. That's in case of the Terrestrial ecosystem, again different types. That's what is a tundra ecosystem, forest, desert, grandland, cropland, and also the garden. So like the various type of terrestrial ecosystem are there. In the ecosystem, that's the marine and the freshwater ecosystem I already told. So all these ecosystem is mainly depend on the solar energy for their food production. So that's a basic thing. Going to the component of the ecosystem. So now we have studied the types of the ecosystem. So next going to the component of the ecosystem. What are the components present in the ecosystem? That's the one is a biotic component and other one is a abiotic component. So what are all living components, all living organisms present in the ecosystem are referred as a biotic component, and the physical, chemical and climatic factors are generally referred as a abiotic component in the ecosystem. So usually the each organisms are interact with here, that's a biotic and the abiotic components. So first is a biotic component, that's a first step is occupied by the producers. So generally producers are referred as a autotrophs in any ecosystem because the producers are key role in the production of food. They utilize the solar energy and converted them into the kinetic or the food energy. That food energy will be utilized by the other organs. All green plants generally refer as a producers. They have the phenomena called as a photosynthesis. In the photosynthetic mechanism, they will converted the whatever the edible energy that's in the form of food energy that will be produced by the producers. Next is consumers. These are the organisms, they entirely depend on the other organisms for their food. They depend on the producers for their food. So consumers, again there are different types of consumers, that's herbivores, carnivores and the omnivores. The herbivores means nothing but these are the organisms, they entirely depend on the green plant for their food sources. That's a grasshopper, rabbit, squirrel, deers. So these are comes under the herbivores. These are simply called as primary consumers. Next is a carnivores. That's a secondary consumers. So these are the animals, they feed on the other animals for their food. Those are called as carnivores. That's a tiger, lion, wolf. So these are all the called as carnivores, or it's also called as a secondary consumers. Next one is a omnivore. So these eat on the both animals and also the plants. So that's omnivores. Example bear, human beings. So those are comes under the omnivores. And another one component that's there, what you said, that's the heterotrophs and the autotrophs, and these are the heterotrophs. That's a decomposers. These are the organisms that involved in the decaying of the organic matter and converted into a inorganic materials. That's usually whatever the waste material occurs in the ecosystem, they converted into a soluble substances. For example, earthworms, bacteria, various microorganisms, fungi, they will help in the degrade of the waste material. Whatever the solid waste will be present, that will be degraded by these decomposers. So decomposers are generally referred as usually they are the cleaners of the ecosystems. Okay. And ecosystem provides the various sources, just like the especially the they provide food, energy, resources, and also the aesthetic values and other resources. These are the component where actually get the energy. They will all get energy from the solar, that's the sun radiation, and usually the energy flow in a cyclic manner. That is the abiotic component to the producers to the consumers, and when consumers is dead, that time the decomposers will converted those decomposed into the soluble matters, and each level the heat energy is lost. Energy is lost in the form of heat. So that's why the energy flow is unidirectional and the matter will be recycling in the ecosystem. So this is how the energy flow chart will be takes place. The solar energy that is converted into chemical energy, and chemical energy is transferred from herbivores to the carnivores to the other decomposers through the sequence or the unidirectional mechanism. In the each level, the energy is lost in the form of heat energy. This is how we can say it's a energy flow in the ecosystem. Energy flow is always unidirectional. They from autotroph to the heterotrophs. Okay, this is how the energy is utilizing in a each level. That's if you take the 10 joules, next level is a 1 joule, and 0.1 joule of energy is utilized by the final organs, and each level there will be a loss of the energy. And these are some biogeochemicals, that's hydrogen cycle, carbon cycle. So like that, the various cycle that will biogeochemical cycle involved in the conversion of these all materials or the nutrient into the soil. This is how the atmosphere, that's the nitrogen cycle. In the nitrogen cycle, the ammonia is converted into ammonium and the process will be takes place. The main sources of the nitrogen is a nutrient as they excrete from the plant, animals. In the atmosphere contain 80% of the atmosphere, and this is the phosphorus cycle, how actually it will be takes place in the nature. So this is how actually the in each level, that's the biogeochemical cycles will be takes place. That's the one is a sedimentary cycle and gaseous cycle will be there. Gaseous cycle in that, so usually the gaseous form, that's a carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide or nitrogen in the form of gaseous form. In the sedimentary cycle, usually the sedimentation occurs, that is in the form of rock surfaces. So this is how the concept of the ecosystem structure, energy flow, and the types of ecosystem will be occurs. So this is an overview account of the all types of ecosystem. So just if you look at the each ecosystem, the component in the each ecosystem may be varies. In the biotic and the abiotic component may be varies, but abiotic component will be commonly occurs, that's a climatic, edaphic factor, whatever the physical factors that will be similar, but the biotic factor may varies with the different types of ecosystem. If you take terrestrial or if you take the aquatic ecosystem, this component will be varies. If you take the aquatic ecosystem, generally there is aquatic animals will be there, but if you take the terrestrial ecosystem, the land dwellers will be there. So like that, the in each ecosystem there will be the component will be changes, but the ecosystem and the functioning will be almost similar in the each types of the ecosystem. So this is how the general account on the types of ecosystem and structure and functions of the ecosystem.